Right now, somewhere in the world, a person is staring at a ceiling at 2 a.m. They have a bed, they have food in the refrigerator, they have a device in their hand that connects them to every human being on the planet. They are safe, warm, and completely comfortable. And they feel terrible, not sick, not grieving, not afraid of anything specific, just empty, just vaguely wrong, like something is missing that they couldn't name even if you asked them directly. Most people assume this is a modern problem. Stress, social media, capitalism, the news cycle, pick your culprit. But the unease goes deeper than that, much deeper, because the discomfort you feel in your most comfortable moments is not a malfunction. It's not weakness. It's not ingratitude. It's a signal. And it's been waiting inside you for 300,000 years. Let's start with something that will sound strange. For the vast majority of human history, your ancestors had almost nothing by our standards. No permanent shelter for most of it, no stored food, no medical care, no protection from violence, weather, or disease. Average life expectancy hovered somewhere between 30 and 40 years, though most of that figure is skewed by childhood mortality. Those who survived to adulthood often lived well into their 60s and 70s, but here is what researchers keep finding when they study the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies that still live something close to the original human lifestyle. They are not miserable. In fact, by several psychological measures, they report higher levels of daily satisfaction than people in wealthy industrialized nations. The Hadza of Tanzania, the San Bushmen of the Kalahari, the Tsimane of Bolivia, group after group, study after study, the same pattern emerges. People with almost nothing, by our definition of nothing, report feeling purposeful, connected, and calm in ways that most modern humans describe as goals they're still working toward. This is not a romantic idea. This is data, and once you understand the mechanisms behind it, the discomfort you feel at 2 a.m. starts to make a very different kind of sense. The first mechanism is movement. Your body was not designed for stillness. This is not a metaphor. It is a straightforward biological fact. For 300,000 years, the human body moved an average of 8 to 12 miles every single day. Not jogging, not exercise, just living, tracking animals, gathering food, relocating camp, carrying water, managing fire. The human musculoskeletal system, cardiovascular system, and endocrine system all evolved in the context of that constant varied movement. Every major system in your body assumed that movement was the baseline, not the exception. When you sit still for 8 hours, your body interprets it the way it would interpret any other severe environmental stressor, as a problem. Cortisol rises, insulin sensitivity drops. The lymphatic system, which has no pump of its own and relies entirely on muscle contractions to circulate, slows almost to a halt. But here's the part that matters most for happiness. Physical movement is one of the most reliable triggers for dopamine and serotonin release the human brain possesses, not just during exercise. After it, the after effect of sustained physical movement is a neurochemical state that our ancestors would have experienced as their normal baseline. That calm, satisfied, slightly tired feeling you get after a long walk. That was just Tuesday for them. For most modern people, it's something they have to schedule. The second mechanism is simpler and stranger. Your ancestors knew exactly what they were supposed to do today. This is not a small thing. Modern psychology has identified a state called flow, defined by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi after decades of research on human satisfaction. Flow is the state of complete absorption in a task that is challenging enough to require your full attention, but not so difficult that it causes anxiety. It is consistently rated as one of the highest states of subjective well-being humans can experience. Your ancestors spent most of their waking hours in it. Tracking an animal requires total sensory attention. You are reading footprints, wind direction, broken branches, dung age, behavioral patterns. Your entire nervous system is engaged. There is no room for rumination. There is no part of your brain free to rehearse tomorrow's argument or replay last week's embarrassment. Gathering plants requires the same focused attention. So does maintaining a fire. So does navigating unfamiliar terrain. So does everything a hunter-gatherer did as a matter of daily survival. The modern equivalent of this state is something people pay coaches to help them find. Ancient humans stumbled into it involuntarily before breakfast. Csikszentmihalyi's research found that people report their lowest levels of satisfaction not during difficult work, but during passive leisure, watching television, scrolling, sitting without a purpose. We have engineered a world almost entirely composed of passive leisure, and we are confused about why it doesn't feel better. The third mechanism is social, and it's the one that runs deepest. Humans evolved as a profoundly social species, not social in the way we use the word now, meaning connected online or surrounded by acquaintances. Social in the older, harder sense, dependent on a small group for survival in a way that made every individual relationship a matter of life and death. In a hunter gatherer band, the typical group size is between 25 and 150 people. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying this number. He found that the human neocortex, the region responsible for complex social reasoning, is sized precisely to manage relationships with roughly 150 individuals, not 1,500, not 15,000 followers, 150. In those groups, every person had a defined role. Every person was known completely. Every person's contribution was visible to the people whose opinions mattered to them. There was no ambiguity about whether you were useful. The group either ate or it didn't. Your effort had immediate, tangible, collective consequence. Researchers studying the Hadza found that social bonds within hunter-gatherer groups are reinforced constantly through shared physical labor, shared food, shared fire, and shared story, not through communication at a distance, through physical presence, repeated daily, without interruption. Loneliness, in the clinical sense we now know it, was essentially structurally impossible in that environment. You could not be surrounded by people you didn't know. You could not be technically connected to thousands of people and still feel unseen. Both of those things are now ordinary Tuesday experiences for millions of people. But here's where it gets more complicated, because this is the point where the narrative usually turns into a fantasy. Go back to nature. Delete your apps. Eat berries. That is not what the evidence suggests. Hunter-gatherer life was also brutal in ways that are genuinely hard to overstate. Infant mortality ran at roughly 30 to 40% in many groups. Violence between groups was common. Dental abscesses, injuries with no treatment, childbirth without intervention. The leading cause of death for women of reproductive age for most of human history was childbirth itself. The happiness researchers found in these populations existed alongside genuine constant suffering. These are not contradictory findings. They are the same finding. What the data shows is not that ancient life was good and modern life is bad. What it shows is that the human nervous system was calibrated for a specific set of conditions, and that many of those conditions have been replaced, not with better versions of the same thing, but with nothing at all. Movement replaced with stillness, defined purpose replaced with ambient choice, deep known community replaced with broad shallow connection, embodied daily challenge replaced with manufactured comfort. The absence isn't neutral. It registers as distress, low grade, sourceless, chronic distress, the kind that fills up 2 a.m. ceilings. In 2020, a large-scale study published in the journal PNAS examined well-being data across 166 countries. It found that subjective well-being, the sense that your life is going well, peaks not in the wealthiest nations, but in nations with strong social cohesion, high physical activity levels, and cultures that emphasize community contribution over individual accumulation. The correlation between national wealth and national happiness essentially disappears above a relatively modest income threshold. Once your basic material needs are reliably met, additional comfort adds almost nothing to your sense that life is meaningful. This is not a new finding. Ed Diener, who spent 30 years at the University of Illinois studying the science of happiness, called this the hedonic treadmill. Each new comfort raises your baseline. You adapt, the relief disappears, and you are back where you started but with a higher standard of normal that is now harder to maintain. Your ancestors had no treadmill. Their baseline was hard. Their relief was real. Every meal was earned. Every warm night was earned. Every morning they woke up not dead was, on some cellular level, a victory. We have made victories impossible by eliminating the conditions that made them meaningful. So what do you do with this? The answer is not to live in a cave. It is not to abandon medicine or reject shelter or pretend the last 10,000 years of human development didn't happen. But the mechanisms are not mysterious. They are documented, replicable, and accessible. Movement is not optional for a human nervous system. 8 to 12 miles was the ancestral baseline. You will not hit that in a modern life without intention. But even 30 minutes of sustained physical movement per day measurably shifts your neurochemical baseline toward what your body considers normal. Depth of connection matters more than breadth. The Dunbar number is real. A small number of people who know you completely, whose lives are practically intertwined with yours, provides something that no volume of digital contact replaces. Social media is not the problem. The substitution of social media for physical presence is the problem. Purposeful difficulty is not the enemy. The research on flow is consistent. challenge at the edge of your capacity, whether physical, creative, or intellectual, produces the highest reported states of daily satisfaction. Passive comfort produces some of the lowest, and meaning requires contribution. The hunter-gatherer model only worked because every individual's effort had direct consequence for people they loved. When your work has no visible effect on the people immediately around you, the brain struggles to locate a reason for it. That is not a philosophical failure. It is a neurological one. 300,000 years of human experience did not produce a species designed for stillness, isolation, and spectating. It produced something built for movement, depth, challenge, and belonging. The malaise you feel is not ingratitude. It is not weakness. It is not a chemical imbalance, though we have become very good at treating it as one. It is your nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do, running the same ancient program it has always run, looking for something the modern world keeps promising to provide and almost never quite does. And in the dark, at 2 a.m., in a bed more comfortable than anything your ancestors ever imagined, it is still looking.